to the Refined Strength podcast, Squadcast edition. And today we're talking about rest and just preventing burnout as an athlete and as a coach. I think it's important to talk about both things because both are very real. And we've all been kind of talking about that lately. It's been like a theme, I feel like, in our personal and professional lives, but also obviously we see it every day in clients too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
have
I
you
think
guys
you
been struggling with your own amount?
I mean, at least for me, especially with this phase in my life, obviously motherhood, and postpartum, where I do feel like I'm having to burn the candle at both ends, finding extra wicks to burn because I am running out of space to work with. I think really being mindful and conscious about that is really important for me because obviously with how much I feel like I'm outputting, it's definitely easy to feel burnout very quickly, not just obviously with work, but just with life in general. So I think recognizing these symptoms or signs of burnout and being mindful, obviously that's an important practice I think that we should all probably make sure that we are employing is mindfulness. It's if you're not careful, you will just end up feeling like life is just too much, work is just too much, and you're just not cut out for X, Y, and Z. And it's I don't know, maybe it's just you need to prioritize some rest and recovery. So that's obviously something I'm having to practice pretty frequently right now.
What are some signs? Because you were like recognizing the signs of
Yeah.
feeling XYZ. So what do you feel like for you are some signs of needing to take a step back?
For me personally, it always comes in the sense of not feeling adequate, not feeling like what I want is meant for me. Maybe that kind of turns into lack of motivation, and then I'm kind of just sitting on my hands, not doing things. Anxiousness definitely tends to kind of come into play where I just feel like every day is a bit overwhelming because I'm like, how am I possibly going to check all the boxes? I feel like once I do allow myself to kind of recharge, I notice that those feelings start to kind of disappear and I recognize them more as intrusive thoughts and not more as my own thoughts. Those are definitely big signs for me of feeling kind of burnt out. It's like, I'm just not cut out for this. And it's like, no, 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 no. You just need to take a step back. So typically that also means I'm consuming less social media because I will then also spiral into the comparison game. And then I'm like, okay, she's doing so much more than me. They're accomplishing so much more than I am in a phase of my life where I feel like I should be kind of matching that. And it's like, again, you can observe not just your thoughts, but other people. Take note, but don't allow it to dictate how you feel and how you act moving forward.
Yeah, mental fog is a big one. I feel like just super relatable, like me as well. But I feel like in clients as well, when they're feeling overwhelmed or like they're just putting a lot on their plate, they just have this mental fog of feeling like they have a lot to do but can't do everything, and they don't know where to start. And so that starts the spiral of overthinking, anxiety. I always think about anxiety is living in the future instead of the present, and the present what helps me, because I also feel like if I'm overwhelmed or whatever, I have feelings of anxiety. It usually comes at me in the mornings when I think in my brain that there's all of these things that I need to do, and so I start having anxiety right away. And I notice it if I pick up my phone right away or if I'm checking social media right away, I can immediately get into that spiral of feeling like I have too much to do. And when I don't check my phone, or if I'm noticing these things happen, and then I can say, okay, I actually need to just slow down and remind myself it's 7 a.m. I have all day. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't, we should just procrastinate, but that means I still have time. And so it's kind of talking yourself through these moments of feeling like you have a lot to do, because in bodybuilding and also as a coach who we do bodybuilding but we also coach people, we have a lot of people that we have to make sure that we're showing up for, but then we also have to make sure that we're showing up for ourselves, because I know just as well as you guys, like if I'm not giving my all to my clients, I feel like I'm doing a poor job. So like if I'm not looking after myself, if I feel like I'm in a brain fog, I feel like I'm doing a bad job, even if it's probably wrong. And even if I'm like lying to myself in my head. And so, you know, relating that to our clients, they're going to feel the same way. If they feel like they're constantly living in a brain fog, always trying to catch up on things, they're going to feel like they're not doing a good job. And then they're going to feel like they're always behind. And then they just feel like they have to keep pushing. And that can definitely drive burnout and just feeling like bodybuilding like isn't for me.
I think a lot of that is hard for people, for bodybuilders especially, or a lot of this is hard because think about what we're doing as bodybuilders to be successful. We are tracking our data. We're looking for the data to trend in a certain direction. We are focusing on making PRs, getting stronger, getting faster, getting better, fitting more cardio in, or, you know, whatever. And so it sets the brain up for like consistently achieving. So like you're kind of building your identity on achievement instead of allowing for your identity to be not attached to achievement, but also not attached to laziness, or I'm not doing anything, or I'm resting, or I'm maintaining. A lot of people have a hard time with just maintenance and just being in a phase of like learning. And that's why I've been reiterating more and more to people, especially newer people who are starting with me, that like, hey, we're not starting with like a big fancy fat loss phase or a building phase or anything. We're starting with maintenance and learning because we can't get there where we want to get later without that. Because I need to learn your body. You need to understand how this plan works, how coaching works. And if you understand more, you're going to get more buy-in for what we're doing together. And you're also going to see how much progress can be made while just maintaining and while just establishing structure, and how establishing discipline feels, because a lot of people just, they don't, before they get started in anything, they haven't seen themselves truly be disciplined at anything that was actually really hard. They've been disciplined in like doing things that they're required to do, like, oh, I'm disciplined to do my homework at school or in college and study for my exams, because it's like, well, your degree is dependent on that. And so,
And some
you
people
pay
aren't
for
even
it, or your
disciplined enough
parents
to do
pay
that.
for it, or like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's like you feel like you're not allowed to rest because you're constantly just focused on like, how can I improve? How can I progress? But rest is also a part of progression because it allows you to actually progress.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you that time to not only obviously like maybe physically and mentally recharge, but it also gives you a moment to like assess and reassess your goals, your approach, and how like just how you're executing things. Because with that, obviously when you're grinding and you're in the grind, your head is down, it's hard to kind of pull yourself up for air and kind of see things objectively. And so giving yourself an opportunity to do that also gives you just more clarity and more ability to focus, because trying to push, and it's I think it's hard to kind of maybe sometimes, especially if you're new to it, it's hard to find that fine line between, oh, I just don't feel like it today, versus, you know what, I have been going, and I need to take a minute to kind of pause and reset. The thing that I think sometimes for some people is difficult to see is you don't always see when other people are doing that. It always kind of just seems like and feels like everybody is grinding, winning 24/7. It's like literally the furthest thing from reality. And if you allow yourself to kind of think that way, you're always going to feel like you're just never doing enough, and you're likely going to burn out pretty quickly. So it's probably the healthiest thing mentally and physically to just remind yourself that we are all in our seasons of grind. Okay, let me pull back and do all those things that I mentioned, and then let's push hard again. That, and the fact that like once you give yourself time to do that, you can even sometimes have more to give to set the bar even higher for next time. It's time to kind of go through that next phase.
Yeah, I think there's like you're talking about, Dee, like there's like quote unquote in seasons, which would be like a prep. And then there's like off seasons, which would be, well, off season, right? But I relate it sometimes to like, why do I pick Michael Phelps all the time? Maybe this is a Canadian thing, like me. I don't know, whatever. But I think about like
just being an ex-coach of Olympic swimmers, maybe.
Probably weird, but I think about, like in his drive for the Olympics, in whenever that Olympics was, when he won all of those medals, like he definitely had seasons of just not driving that hard. But so there's like these ebb and flows of seasons in terms of in season, off season, readiness season, or like a prep for the prep, like sometimes we have prep phases prior to preps, that type of thing. But I think there's also rest within the grind. Something that I'll tell my athletes a lot is, if they're in a prep, my job as their coach is to regulate recovery. It's actually not to regulate. Yeah, it's actually not to regulate you pushing hard. Like sometimes, yes, it is, because there is a part where you have to like get over that mental hump of like, prep is hard and doing this is fucking hard. So is off season, whatever. But like mentally getting yourself there. But a lot of it is, how can I assist you in making sure that you are recovered enough so you can show up and keep doing the things that you need to do, because your body's not going to progress if you can't recover from it. Right. And so
I literally just did this with a client too, because we've been pushing hard and it's her first prep. So she obviously is new to how all of this feels. But I gave her 2 back-to-back refeeds, recovery days, no cardio. And of course, she hit a new low. And I was like, what shocker. But the other thing is, she asked me, because I had her check in with me like briefly the day after her first refeed. And I was like, if we're the same or even drop, we're going to add another refeed, because we're getting to that point where it's just a very delicate balance between, are we actually feeling recovered, or is this push going on a little too long and it's going to result in kind of a opposite effect. So to prevent that, we, like you said, pay very close attention to, okay, when is it really time to prioritize that recovery, even if it's just for a couple of days. And she was like, well, if we're not dropping, shouldn't we drop calories again and increase cardio? And I was like, we will do that, but let's give it a second to recover, work, let the body feel good again, bring that energy back up, and get your mind kind of back into that, like, ready to go. And she checked in today and was like, oh my God, I was so grateful for this extra refeed. I feel so good. And she's ready to kind of grind again. And I was like, this is why we do it. That's also why it's good to have a coach, because 9 times out of 10, we're always going to do probably more and more and more and more, meaning drop food, increase cardio, and push, and not, and ignore the signs of needing that time to recover. So perfect example, because I just saw that.
Yeah, I was just telling him too about how I found out he was training like 6 days a week. Like he was training like 4 or 5 days in a row most of the time. And he's like in this phase where he's like really excited about just like growth and just like feeling great, looking great. And he told me in his check-in, he's like, I went back to like 2 to 3 days in a row only and then resting. And it took a mindset shift for sure, but now I'm feeling like a lot better about it. And the mindset shift was going from like more is better to better is better.
Mm-hmm.
More isn't always better. Sometimes it is, but usually just better execution is better. And when you rest from training, for example, like taking a rest day or an extra rest day, you get the ability to then train harder the next day. And so usually what happens if you're training 4, 5, 6 days in a row, day 4, 5, and 6 suck. You're not training very well. You might think you are because you've been doing it forever and you don't know what really good training feels like, and like being really strong feels like, but you're eventually going to plateau at that and not be able to fully train to your full potential, and also not be able to actually grow, because growth doesn't happen while you're training. Growth happens while you're resting.
Yeah. I think it's like, just to add to that, and it just goes back to the point of like needing to just remember the bigger picture. Like, what is the ultimate goal here, and what actions and what game plan are going to best serve that? And objectively, well, I think when we're looking at it from ourselves, it's hard to be objective about that, which is why it's always just good to not only in the realm of having a coach to help you with your fitness goals, but also having in surrounding yourselves with people and friends who can also help you learn how to like just kind of bounce off of in terms of feedback and helping yourself recognize, okay, like, yes, they can help keep you motivated, and they should, and support you. But it's also good to kind of have that sounding board that's going to let you know, like, hey girl, it's totally okay to like have a season of life where you're not just constantly showing everybody how much you're winning. Sometimes it's really, really good to have the season of life, even if you don't necessarily show it, because rest isn't necessarily the most viral content, but it's good to have people tell you like, yeah, it's okay. Because sometimes you just need somebody to tell you it's okay. And then you're like, all that weight comes off your shoulders, and then you can see things a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, a lot of athletes really, I've seen a lot of athletes almost like, I don't want to like use this, but screw themselves out of actual progress in a phase where rest is like part of their protocol, like a health phase where we're trying to get a period back, or like they had surgery or an injury, or a reverse diet, and them just like training too hard in a reverse diet, which I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's like a reverse diet is that time to bring your body back to health.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just like your body is just going through some like big shifts. Maybe you've like changed jobs or had like a big like divorce or just something big happened in your life. And I've seen a lot of athletes just like really resist also getting good at resting, right? And just feeling like they're always having to do more. So they add more to their plate, or they start a side hustle, and then they like think that they're behind here, and they do all of these extra things because they feel like they're not doing as good of a job. And so instead of embracing the rest, and rest doesn't mean just sitting on your ass, right? Like that can create stress in your mind. It's about being okay with where you are at and working on your mental health, and like parasympathetic activities, like fucking coloring or some shit like that. Like literally bringing your CNS back down. I have just seen too many athletes screw themselves out of actually making progress in that phase because they think because they're not grinding really, really hard, they're just like not going to see progress, right?
Yeah.
And part of your athlete as being an athlete and part of improving your health and fitness, rest and recovery is an essential part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much I needed to actually build this skill. I think it was like 2023, 22. I don't know. I got my boobs done, and then I had a cyst removed, and then I got my boobs done all within a year. And so I had like 3 surgeries within a year, where each of those surgeries I was not allowed to train for 6 weeks at a time. And then when I was allowed to train, like I couldn't go and just get some
Also
PRs
normal.
after having like a
Yeah.
hole in my abdomen, like yeah, or my boobs done. So I had to really take that time to just actually do steps and not force cardio and not stress about the fact that I couldn't train, right? Like,
It's such a like, because I'm sure we've all had clients that undergo some sort of like need to recover from injury, surgery, sickness, whatever it is. And I definitely from time to time will get a client, usually for the first time we go through something like that together. After that, usually we kind of like are on the same page with things, and it's like, okay, yeah, I need to rest, it's fine. But the first time they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose all my progress. I'm going to get fat. I'm going to like, it's just gonna be bad. It's like, okay, hold on. First of all, long term, longevity wise, what's in our best interest? What course of action is going to best serve what we need right now? You just got your boobs done. Perfect example. I got mine done too. Rachel, you have yours done. I've had clients who have undergone breast augmentation or a nose job or some GI surgery, whatever it is, or just getting the flu, something like that. And it's like, okay, well, is it really best interest for us to go ahead and just try to train anyway? It's like your incisions are fresh, or you literally can't get out of bed without like almost passing out. It's like you could still try to push through that and go to the gym, do some cardio, whatever. Or you could rest for a few days, few weeks, whatever the timeline may be, and feel better and then get right back to doing what we were doing. It's like, do you want to prolong that process and get back to things sooner than you need to, and then all of a sudden we are worse off than we were a few weeks ago? Or do we want to just rest and then come back and feel better? And in that time, like you said, resting doesn't mean you're dormant. Resting can mean you are indulging new hobbies, you are furthering your education, maybe you're consuming more literature, reading books, whatever it is. Maybe you're taking up painting. Maybe you decide to apply for that job that you didn't have time to do because you were so busy, and things like that. It's like you can be productive. It can be a productive time if you do it the way that it could be done. Yeah. Rest is not unproductive.
Well, it also helps you not, it helps you avoid wasting time. And
Yeah.
that's the thing I think a lot of people don't see until they've gone through a couple hard cycles of it, where they like, okay, I got the flu. I really was out for a few days, couldn't train, and then like I felt like I was 50% better. So like, all right, I'm gonna go and train because of, oh my God, I'm taking 3 days off and I can't stand being out of the gym more than that. So I train, and then next day I feel even worse than I did the day before. Whoa. Well, you could have just rested that day and then felt okay, back to 67, rested the next day, felt a little bit better. And then, all right, you've spent 6, 7 days off from the gym, but at least it was only 6 or 7 days instead of spending 4 days off and then one day back on, but then it pushed you back further. So then you have to spend another week off because you didn't just give yourself the fucking rest that you needed in the first place. So people think they're taking a shortcut when in reality, they're making themselves take longer than they should have taken in the first place.
Yeah.
And if you had just spent the time off that you needed in the first place, you would have recovered faster.
Same thing with like doing a mini cut 4 weeks after your first show because you didn't do what you're supposed to do post show, or planning a fat loss phase for the summer, even though your plan is to step on stage next year. It's like, okay, again, big picture, what is the goal here? And what is the best course of action to achieve that optimally?
And I think a lot about what happens in shortcuts too, like when people really want to take those shortcuts, is typically they don't yield the results that you're really wanting. And then that backfires in your trust with yourself and your self confidence and just like your resilience. And so, like, when I'm talking to clients about that, like, yeah, okay, there's like the physical side effects of XYZ and of doing this metabolism, physique, whatever, health, but it's also like, what does that do for your mind? How does that promote longevity? Longevity in the sport, longevity for health and fitness, longevity for just like your vitality as you age. It literally does nothing. It's
And it
setting
prevents enjoyment too, because that's where eventually you lead to burnout, because you think you get it into your head that you need to be pushing all the time. You need to be grinding. You need to take no days off, or take as few days off as possible. And then over time, your mind kind of like recognizes that, like, oh wow, this thing that I'm pushing towards, it's making me worse because I can't turn off. And then you resent bodybuilding because of how hard it's pushing you and how extreme it is, or how much you feel like you can't take off. It's like, you're the only one, unless you have a shitty coach that's also telling you not to rest, but like generally you're the only one that's making you get to a point of that burnout. You're putting that pressure on yourself. You're telling yourself you can't rest, or can't enjoy other hobbies, or can't an untracked meal, or an intuitive day, or something like that. Like, people put those stressors on themselves because they think in order to achieve XYZ, they need to be constantly progressing or constantly grinding, when in reality, like, yes, you need to hold yourself to a high standard. Yes, you need to push yourself, but at the same time, you need to recognize when you will benefit and be able to progress more from rest, because that's what like a true professional athlete.
And I think it also happens when we feel like we're running out of time. I think I definitely get a sense of that, where I set a goal and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm excited to achieve this. And then I feel like I need to have it by tomorrow. I definitely still struggle with that. And even though I know better, it's like I have goals, whether it be in life or in my postpartum journey or whatever it is. It's like I need to have all these problems solved by the end of the week. And it's like that's a really good way to achieve burnout because you feel like, okay, there's absolutely just no way that I am going to accomplish all of those things. And I just sit in my anxious thoughts and I'm like, crap, well, I guess I'm just not even gonna get up today. I'm not gonna try. Like that instant gratification, like it's especially obviously with just how the world is today, that is, I mean, I can Amazon Prime anything I want in like seconds. I can DoorDash whatever I want. If I want, to have sushi for lunch, I can have that within the next like 30 minutes. And anything that's really worth having is just going to take a little extra time because of not just you learn a lot along the way, obviously, and all of those lessons not only help you achieve what you want, but they help you keep what you want. So it's like anything that's really worth having is going to take a little extra time. Discipline, right? It really also just comes down to like your goals and what you truly say you want have to come over that immediate satisfaction or instant gratification. So,
yeah, because the goals, they won't happen without your inputs along the way. They won't happen without the work. That's pretty obvious. But when people are typically complaining or worried about the progress that they don't think they're making, it's because they're still so focused on the outcome that they want. They're still so focused on, I haven't made it there yet, rather than looking at like, well, these metrics are all improving or at least maintaining or improving. And these metrics are what I need in order to get there. So in order to have longevity and avoid that burnout and avoid feeling like a failure while you're working towards something, you do need to shift your idea of what success means and what achievement means, because achievement of the big thing is important. Obviously, we all want that. We all have different big stretch goals that we want to achieve for ourselves. But in order to make those happen, we need to be able to enjoy the pursuit of the little things along the way, to enjoy the pursuit of, day-to-day training, of feeling good day to day, of digesting well every day. Like, anytime I have like a really solid poop, I feel so good and accomplished, honestly. And it happens every day. Like, I am a very relatable person, but that's an example of like something small that adds up over time. Like, so
digestion
many
is
athletes
regular.
Man, I can't even, like, especially when you've been like traveling or stress is high and you just get your own bathroom to yourself.
Glorious.
Y'all are funny.
I can't even. But like that just comes back to
attitude right there. This is being able to be grateful for that.
very grateful. That just comes back to Rach, what you were saying earlier is practice and putting in the reps. And that all of us are still just practicing and putting in the reps. It's now just differently. Like I had a client who, this doesn't quite have anything to do with rest, but it has about like the enjoyment and not getting ahead of ourselves and not feeling burnt out. Is she sends me training videos pretty constantly and consistently. And she's actually one of my clients who is really, really great at form and like consistency. Anyways, I said, hey, this looks great, but I want you to make this little tweak to bias the glutes a little bit more. She's a bikini athlete. And her message back to me was like, darn, I was really upset. I thought I did great at this. And I went, you did do great at this, but you're sending me videos so that I can keep building on the things that you're already good at, so we can keep practicing and progressing. I said, you're now on like the higher level of the RDLs where we can make these tweaks to make it bias XYZ.
That's actually like, that's really good.
I said, like, you earned that piece of feedback. Like, I'm not telling you to slow down. I'm not telling you to like breathe in such a way. I'm telling you, you're doing these good things. So now you can level up. And I've had clients say that to me as well, in terms of like when I give them feedback for training, oh, I thought I was doing great at it. You are doing great. But the thing is, every single time we train, we can refine things a little bit better. Doesn't mean that we have to all of the time. That's not always what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
But like, I know every single time I'm in a gym with Rachel, she's going to humble the fuck out of me in some way. And then the next week, I'm going to be like, fuck, I need to do this a little bit better. Even though I was doing a pretty good job at it in the first place, there's always ways that we can level up. But we also have to understand that, like, that doesn't mean that we're not doing a good job. Because if you always feel
see that next level that you were brought to when your coach told you to do something differently and you did it and you felt the pain of it, right? You can't unlearn that. That means that you've earned, like, okay, now I'm at this level. So I can't go back to that level now because I know that that's not the standard. I have a new standard. And it's like, it is a privilege to have that. And that's what I wish more athletes really understood, instead of thinking of it as like, oh, my coach just is like such a hard
So
ass
hard
or a
on me.
stickler for this fucking tempo, or
Yeah.
it's so hard on me, or like they expect so much out of me. And I've struggled with that as a coach, of like balancing that,
Yeah.
because I want to hold a high standard, but I know that sometimes I come off like I'm expecting a lot more out of my athletes than they can do. But at the same time, like, it is a good thing that you have that, because you don't have that with every coach. Not every coach has that much specificity and oversight, or wants to have that much specificity and oversight. But also, like, not everyone can have a coach. Not everyone can have someone who is like, whose literal job it is to help you rise.
Yeah.
And that's a big privilege in the grand scheme of things. And if you have this big goal, then you got to accept that big responsibility of rising up to the level of the goal.
Yeah.
And it should be fun.
Yes.
That's where that mental shift is, right? If you are always feeling like you have to always grind, or like it's just like you're just like pulling teeth, then you will experience burnout, and you will experience not enjoying bodybuilding, or the on again, off again of like, I'm going to prep. Now I'm off. Fuck off. Now I'm going to prep. And you just feel like you're never making progress. It's also finding, we're talking about rest, but we're also talking about not being burnt out. As an athlete, you have to train, like, that is part of your plan. And so finding these like new ways, and coming from gratitude and having it be something that is like fulfilling you, is a way more enjoyable journey. And you're always going to find ways to be excited about showing up, instead of it feeling like an endless grind of just like, oh my God, I have to do this again. It's like, it just comes from a place of joy.
Yeah.
And when it comes from a place of joy, the anxiety, the overthinking, the feeling like it's just like this endless, never ending piece that you don't enjoy, that's not going to be there so much.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm like, I feel like when I talk about it like this, it just seems so like hippy dippy and like rainbows and flowers. But that's just, I think, in my core, is I'm just like that. But I would hate to go through so much of life and set goals that don't fulfill like my soul and make me feel truly happy, and like I get joy out of life. It's like, then what is the point of that? Like, why are we even doing this? So I'm going to set myself up in a way, when it comes to like even just mindset, that that doesn't mean that I don't have tough days. It doesn't mean that life doesn't get fucking hard, because it does. But being mindful of that and recognizing when I'm having maybe more tough days than I normally would, it's like, okay, let's pause and kind of figure out why I'm mentally stuck in this kind of like life is hard headspace, and try to figure out, okay, what needs to be changed and adjusted in my routine that's going to put me back in this like, yeah, life is hard, but I can still conquer the world attitude. Because it's also not going to always just stay that way. Once you pull yourself out of that first hole, it's great. Now you have tools that you're aware of that you can, next time you find yourself in that hole, you can pull yourself back out of it. it's just an ever evolving kind of like, okay, life is feeling kind of heavy right now. Let me take a step back and reevaluate, find the sun again, and then, keep doing what I'm doing, keep trying to focus on getting better. But yeah, I think that what is the fucking point if you are not going to ultimately still be enjoying what it is that you're in pursuit of? That's just, perfect example. That's one of the reasons I was working towards getting my doctorate in physical therapy. And then I ultimately decided, looking at my life years from, that point in my life, that's not really what I want. That's not the goal that I want. That's not the life that I want. I want something different, and it's okay to want something different. Again, that's a really good opportunity and example of I'm head down grinding. I'm finishing all my prereqs. I'm going through school. I'm filling out applications. And then I have a moment to rest and realize this actually isn't the goal that I feel aligned with anymore. And that's okay. Okay, but now what do I really want? How do I reevaluate and figure out what does Daraja 10 years from now want for herself? And how do I pivot and get there?
It's easy to get caught up in that like pursuit of the thing you started. You identify as someone who I finished what I started. Identify a certain goal, like getting a doctorate degree, especially with a father who's a doctor yourself. Like you give yourself that like standard, and you're like, I have to do this because I've always said that I was going to do this. We also,
or someone
no
told
matter
you
what
that
we
you should be
say,
doing
we
that.
always think about how we're going to. Exactly. And you've also maybe watched other people give up on something before their potential should have let them. And what you're saying is like, it's okay to change course. It really is okay. And what is cool about it is that it will allow you to really see how much of my life am I living for me versus how much of my life am I living for someone else or other people's expectations, or, just the American dream, or, whatever. I think a lot of people do things in life, whether it's job, college, kids, even being in a relationship, and they're simply just doing it because they think that they should, not because they actually want to. And
I just wanted to say I love the quote because it literally is exactly what you said. It's like I am more focused on how my life feels more than how my life looks. And I think that's like, I love that quote because especially with social media now and everyone posting their life on social media, it's like, yeah, your life doesn't have to look amazing to feel amazing.
Yeah. I'm reading this book right now called The Elephant in the Brain, and it's really interesting. It's about like our hidden motives in everyday life and like how our brains are wired. And like it was just talking about like, imagine a world where like every human was just basically like the part of their brain that judges or perceives others' possessions. Imagine that was turned off. So like we still have our possessions. We can still see each other's possessions, like what we're wearing, what we're driving, what our house looks like, all of that stuff. But like we don't have the capacity to actually judge it or say anything about it or whatever. So like how would our spending habits change? How would our showcasing habits change? Because like if nobody can really see or care anything about my outfit, does it really matter what I'm wearing? So we would probably all most likely go more towards like functional things. Just I'm wearing this because it's comfortable. I'm wearing this because I'm driving this because it's like cost effective to drive or whatever. Like I'm doing this, I'm living in this home or living in this way because I just like how it feels. So like I think that's a good practice to kind of get into, and just in your daily life, like what if I didn't care what other people thought? How would I do things differently? Not only in possessions, but like in how you decide to prep for a show. Like, are you wanting to bodybuild because it's just what everybody around you is doing? Or it's because like people say like, oh, you should compete. You look so good. Or like, are you getting back on stage because you keep being asked, when are you competing again? When are you competing again? Instead of actually listening to your coach and being like, I should compete when my coach says I'm ready. Right? Like those are two totally different paths usually.
Yeah, and it's funny how when you are just so settled in whatever you are doing because it feels some type of way in your body, the comments that other people have just really don't affect you. It really doesn't matter because like you're just doing what feels most aligned for you. And I had a client who's in prep really struggle with like comments from other people. Even myself, like in an off season, I've had people, bodybuilders, be like, why are you eating like you're in prep? Well,
Why do you care?
why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to you that I'm eating? It's so, I know, I was like, wow, okay, thanks. But like, this was years ago when it doesn't matter. But really, it for me, I'm like, okay, why does it matter what I'm eating for you, who's not my coach, who's has no idea like what my other meals look like throughout the day, and like just be care about yourself.
Just do
It
you,
just,
boo boo. Just do you.
I'm like, it really doesn't matter.
And
Yeah.
it might not make sense to other people either. I remember like your comments about just like how you were doing things like a couple years ago made me think about how like I remember when I was prepping for like my second prep ever, or no, it was like it was my pro day or my prep that I got my pro card 2017. I remembered I stopped posting as much of my food as I used to before that point because I was very much in the IIFYM space at that point as an athlete. Like I fucking bullshit, but I got shredded and I did a great job and I got my pro card with it. Either way, though, I stopped sharing as much of it at that point and thereafter because I really didn't like the comments I would get. And like one of the comments I remember a local coach saying just like they said something to me at a show where they saw me and they were like surprised at how lean I was. And because they didn't realize that I would get that lean eating as much peanut butter as I ate. Like just because I posted my nightly meal that had a bunch of peanut butter on it, they were like, wow, I can't believe that you got that lean eating that much peanut butter. I'm like, okay, thanks.
I've definitely got that same reaction when I've posted my food in the past too, or even just posting like how, like posting the process and how you go through prep. It's like, oh, people don't like, I'm not doing HIIT cardio, or I'm not like eating the way that you think I should be eating to get as lean as I'm getting. And it's like, my process doesn't have to look the way that you thought it was going to work, first of all. But like, also, like, just because I'm doing something a certain way doesn't mean that you can't keep doing things the way that you're doing things. But I feel like that's a whole other conversation to have for another day.
But the fact is, like, that's a lot of energy that if you are caring about what other people what.
That's a good point. Keep going. That's it.
That's a lot of energy that if you care about what other people are doing, that you could actually just be fueling into yourself.
Yeah.
Or if you are caring about what other people are saying, you could just not let them theory, Mel Robbins.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Think about whatever they're going to do. And you can just put whatever energy that is into hitting your plan harder or just like being chill when you need to. Like it's a lot of energy spent on unnecessary shit.
Yeah, a great way to prevent burnout is to stop caring about what other people are doing. Sorry, Rachel.
Different like stressors. I think that's what people like, I wish more people understood because like whether it's stress from training, like just literal stress on your body from training hard like you should, or life stress, a kid screaming, you know, something happening at work, you know, traffic, whatever, all of it, and like stress just like in your mind, like, oh my God, she's eating that and she looks great. Should I be eating that? Or should I not be eating this because she's not eating this and she said that she doesn't eat vegetables? Like, oh my God, like that stress is going to load your nervous system. So like the reason I'm able to eat peanut butter and get lean or have a latte every day that I make myself and don't track, I'm able to do that because I'm not fucking stressing about it. And everything else I do at a very high level. And so a quarter cup of some fat-free milk isn't going to make or break my progress. Like if you are the kind of person that stresses about something like that or stresses about your, you know, a certain like a condiment that you put on your food or whatever, then yeah, you're the kind of person that probably needs to be more dialed in to that number because the fact that it wasn't tracked is stressing you out.
Yeah, that like if you're constantly second guessing and not like obviously not just about food, but food is obviously a really good example because people I find a lot with clients are so stressed out about what they're going to do, how they're just like, if they're making the right decision when it comes to their food choices and how they're executing their plan. It's like, if you're every little move that you do, every decision you make, if that's stressing you out, oh my God, like, no wonder you feel burnt out after however many weeks or months of either dieting
Your
or
body's not responding.
yeah, like that. I mean, that's also just a big part of stress management, which is another conversation, but it ties into obviously helping prevent burnout. Is if you are stressing about every little single thing, girl, oh my God, like that's just no way to live your life. Life is just not meant to be lived that way.
I
Because
honestly,
think about what cortisol does in the body. Like we're all talking about stress and stuff like that. And then, most of this podcast has been about rest. So cortisol, when it spikes because of whatever stressor is going on, but it's constantly spiking, it's constantly like going up and down throughout the day or throughout the weeks, or if you're living in like a chronically stressed state, like cortisol affects literally everything in your body. It affects how your gut like how your digestion flows. It affects how your hormones stay balanced or lack balance, get imbalanced, whatever. It impacts so much. It impacts your level of recovery. Stress literally will make you retain more water. So like the same reason why after a leg day, you might be up in weight because you're retaining more water from the inflammation from that. You're also going to retain water from just being a stress ball, like an anxious mess. So I know anxiety is not something that is like, it's easier said than done in terms of like getting to a place where you can feel better and not constantly be in that state, but it is worth working on and finding the best way for you to work on it. Because if you don't, you're going to be in a hamster wheel just for the rest of your journey.
And it's one of those things too where like you never just stop working on that. Like the people who you see are very high achieving or the people you look up to, obviously as coaches, we have clients who rely on us to help them navigate that aspect of things. It doesn't mean that we don't struggle with that either. It's just we and the people you see freaking killing it in life have gotten a lot better at managing that stress. And once we do recognize, okay, this is kind of stressing me out or I am stressed, it's like we recognize it quickly and we learn how to employ our stress management tools so that we can just keep on moving like we need to.
yeah. And I
What are some
mean,
things you guys do to manage stress? Just like, what are some of those tools that you guys like or that you've seen help clients?
I definitely like to, personally, and also for my clients, I like to make sure that we're thinking about breathing. It's just one of those things that we take for granted because it's such a simple and easy thing to do. But I definitely, even in myself, I find myself going all day without kind of checking in on that. And then I'll get a moment to myself. Maybe Azalea's down for a nap and I get to go take like a nice hot long shower. And I realize like all my breaths are in my chest instead of taking big normal breaths and kind of just full inhale and exhale. And it's like, oh my God, I've gone all day basically holding my breath. Of course, that's going to be very stressful. So I like to implement things like box breathing. It's like, okay, 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 seconds out, or maybe a little bit longer, or kind of really further activating that parasympathetic and exhaling longer than you've inhaled. So maybe you inhale 4 seconds, hold, and then exhale for 6 seconds. Not only does it help kind of not clear your mind, but calm things down, you're also being more mindful and kind of coming back to your breath and controlling that and allowing yourself to take deeper breaths, which it sounds kind of silly, but if you've practiced it and you've tried it, it freaking works. So especially if I have someone who's pretty balls deep in prep, yeah, they're pretty busy. It maybe work is like kicking their ass, or they're having trouble falling asleep because their just mind doesn't stop racing. There's two techniques I like to use. One is because I'm someone who has a hard time falling asleep. Sometimes too, my mind just won't stop going. I like to count my breaths and I'll count to 30. Sometimes I have to count to 50, but I will inhale, exhale, count, and 1 and then I'll do it again, 2, 3, and then sometimes before I reach 30, I'm out and I've fallen asleep. Like I said, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. The other one is throughout the day, I try to make sure that I've at least been mindful. Sometimes if you're wearing a fitness tracker or a watch, you can set a reminder to help you with that, and it can give you like a reminder, hey, maybe here, give you 1 minute for mindfulness, and you can pause, because sometimes we go through our day and we don't think we have time to reset, and we absolutely do. We just need to be mindful about it. Those little things are super helpful. Another thing is making a to-do list, usually the night before. I try not to do it the morning of, but sometimes if you have that time in the morning, you can sit down with your coffee, listen to some relaxing music, lo-fi, Spotify playlist, whatever you want to do, and write down your tasks for the day. And just seeing it, especially if you're a visual person, helps you go, okay, this is doable today. Sometimes if your to-do list is in your head, then it seems like it's just never going to get done. And then physically checking those things off as you go. Those are probably some of my favorite and most frequently, like, here, try this and see how it goes.
Yeah, a lot of my stress management strategies comes down to like awareness and developing awareness. So either awareness of where that stress is coming from. Is it external, like your job? Are you just giving yourself added shit to do? Is it a relationship? Is it whatever? Looking at that, but then also looking inwards. So awareness of your physical body. Does your body feel a certain way when you have stress get really high or anxiety gets high? So it's like a physical symptom. So in me, my chest starts to feel tight, or brain fog, like I mentioned earlier. And so it's developing awareness of when you're in a little bit of a heightened state, and then obviously doing some breath work, so like deep breathing, or even just like checking in with yourself. Something either at the beginning or at the end of the day that brings grounding. So like physical grounding, so like getting outside, going for a walk, getting sunlight, or it's like later in the day exposure, literal grounding, like putting your feet on the ground. Just like developing presence in your day. Doesn't need to be big. For me, I've been in like a disjointed house, but I have that big brown chair upstairs that I haven't sat in a really long time. But that was like my grounding spot for the day in the morning, where I would do reading. So I would be able to do a self check-in and say like, am I feeling anxious today? Do I need to bring awareness to like calm myself down from that? And then developing like self-talk habits, because a lot of it's like mental, or it can be. And so talking yourself through something, reminding yourself that you're safe, reminding that you can do hard things. You know, I am capable, like I statements, empowering statements to just remind yourself that you're safe, you're capable, and you're able to kind of like move through and execute on things. So those are some of mine, just like from a mental standpoint. Obviously, there's physical ones like a wind down routine and what does that look like, blah, blah, blah. Also, leaning on friends and community. Something that I have started doing, which sounds weird, is talking to my friends more about shit that is hard, because I like to internalize. I'm an only child. I'm like, I can do things by myself. Yay, go me, which is great, except when it's not great. And I just need somebody other than Bob to talk to, like girls, right? Like you guys, like when we lost Guinness and I was in the vet and I was like, I don't fucking know what to do. And I can't even handle my husband and me. I leaned on you guys, and just like leaning on friends and community is big. And just seeing that can help you see that you're not alone in whatever kind of situation that you're going through. That just like helps, even when you're just like, hey, I just need you to listen. And then also asking for help, because we really suck at asking for help. I feel like, just, I'm going to say like generalization to women, but when we are high achievers, we think that we can do everything we ourselves, and a lot of us can, and we're pretty good at it, but that doesn't mean that sometimes we don't need help. So
Yeah, when things are hard, it can be easy to feel like you're doing it wrong. And just because things get hard and you're having a hard day doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means like, it means other things. So you don't have to feel like that.
those are mine.
These are just living life in this world. I think both of those sets, like just both of the things you guys said about stress management, just tools and perspectives, are all things that I use a lot too. The breathing thing is a big one for me, and just like taking a break, even when I'm super busy and kind of like overwhelmed with things to do, because usually the break acts as like a catapult or a catalyst for like getting back into that productivity and feeling like capable mode. Because if I didn't have that, then I would like continue to feel this like, oh my God, overwhelming feeling of I'm not getting enough done. So yeah, and leaning on people, asking for help, even to people you don't normally ask for help from. I think a lot of people like in relationships do tend to kind of like get into the habit of not asking their partner for help, whether it's with the kids, with a chore, or with something that's like something you've always done. But it's never too late to change that and maybe shift your relationship, shift your roles, ask for help or ask for something different from your partner if you do have one, or ask for something different from a friend that you've never asked from before, because we're changing all the time. So that means our relationships will change too. So I think that's another one that I would say would be a helpful thing for people to think about, is just not being afraid to change what you need from certain people. That, and I do like to smoke a little weed. That is
I'll
another
get back to
stress
that.
management tool.
I could add that to my stress management guide.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But anyway, thank you guys for listening, and thank you both for being on this episode. Anyone who wants to learn more about anything specific, let us know. DM us on IG, comment down below, send us a review. We love that. Like and subscribe, and
Yes.
we'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.